Hello, Edwina Murphy-Droomer is my name, and I want to warmly welcome you to this interview in the series that is all about unleashing the audacious woman within. Today, we have with us Jill Hope, who has a phenomenal gift for supporting women in breaking through their financial glass ceiling so that they can step into life to live the prosperous, purposeful, and passionate life of their dreams. Welcome, Jill, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Edwina. I'm so excited to be here and doing this project with you.
Yeah, me too. I think money is one of the most fascinating subjects that we can dive into. And I know there's all sorts of stories and money blocks and ideas around this that particularly women have. So I'm really excited to dive into this. But, for those in our audience that haven't had the pleasure of meeting you yet, I would love you to tell us a little bit about your story and how you came to be doing the work that you do.
Sure, I'd love to. Yeah, I started my business, iShine, about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And what I originally started doing was I was supporting parents, primarily parents whose children were either being bullied or they were particularly shy, where they were really withholding themselves and not being their true selves or not having confidence. And so I would work with those parents because that's where I was at that point in time. I had a 5-year-old son and we had our challenges. And I had learned a lot over those first 5 years of having him about, as a parent, how to really be conscious and how when you heal your own stuff, you can heal your kids. So that's what my work was for, almost 12 years, probably 10, 11 years. In the last year, I have started to fully transition over into helping both men and women actually with building wealth and building not only material things, but this feeling of abundance and wealth from within.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because as I was working in my business all those years, I started to feel like something just felt off to me.
Yeah.
And I thought, I have to be true to my soul and I have to be true to my heart. And so I knew, as much as I loved the work and I still completely back it up, I knew that there was something else that wanted to come through. And so when I was in this searching period about a year or two ago, I thought, what is it? And I remember something that a mentor told me many, many years ago. And it's that your mess is your message.
Yes.
And I thought, well, hang on, my mess was this parenting stuff early back in the day, but I have had a bigger mess my entire life from the time I was a very young child. And that was around money.
Yeah.
And so I thought, oh my gosh, this is something I need to consider. Interestingly, alongside that, I didn't even plan this, but a lot of the people I was coaching who initially came to me to work with their parenting, we had solved the parenting problems and now we were working on financial stuff and wealth building. And they were having these magnificent results. So these things were happening at the same time. My awareness about how I needed to shift, and then starting to notice how how I was helping my clients. And when I put those together, that's where this work came from that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, there's a couple of things in there. One is that through all the work that I've done in supporting mothers, that the understanding that it starts with us, it's so easy to look at our kids and go, how do I fix them? Or how do I change that behavior? But so often it starts with us and who we're being and how we show up that makes the difference, which is, I love that you brought that up as well. So I would love to, first of all, just give some of our audience, have a conversation around manifesting. I think it's a really triggering word. Some people are very in tune with it and it's all good. And other people are like, so I just say, hey, I want $100,000 and sit on the couch and it's going to arrive. So, so I think, it's a loaded word. It's a word that we see a lot now. So if you could talk to us about your understanding of manifestation, and we can unroll from there.
Sure. Yes, I'd love to. Yeah. So in terms of when I think about manifestation, There are a number of things. And I mean,
Yeah.
this could be a really big conversation, or I could just answer that question, just with a couple of sentences. But it's really about connecting in with your heart. And that alone is like a whole huge area, because when we think about things we want, a lot of times it's stuff that someone has planted this idea in our mind that we should want that thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what we want. Or we want something for a dysfunctional reason, like we think it'll make people like us more if we have that. So when it comes to manifesting, I think the first thing is really making sure that the thing that you say you want is a heart and soul desire, number one. And I think when a lot of people fail to get what they want and they get frustrated with this idea of manifesting, it's because they may not be fully in tune with what it is they truly want. Yeah. So if you connect with that thing that you truly want, then it's allowing, it's a lot of, I guess I would call it intuitive work is the way that I see it, because it's connecting with your heart and feeling that thing that you want. And then using your higher guidance to give you the steps to create that. Yeah. And that's another area where people fall down. We try to use our brains to figure out how to have something that we've never created before. And how are we going to figure out with our brains how we're going to create something if we've never done it? Yeah. So we need to tap into some higher guidance. Yeah. And then kind of the last part of it, manifestation from my perspective, is it's this piece that so many people struggle with, which is the letting go. Yeah. Because there is a surrendering that needs to take place before it shows up. Yeah. And it's like when you've done everything you can do, you have to let go. And this is where so many people don't want to let go. They want to control how it's going to show up. And so they, again, get frustrated and they say, this never works for me. And then it won't.
Oh my goodness. Yes. That is such that control aspect. We can look at it in every area of our life, but, this was something I'm laughing internally because I did this leadership training last year. And one of the things that my coaches were saying is you've got to surrender. And to me, that was like, give up. My idea around surrender was a really, disempowering feeling until I understood the power of just trusting more and belief. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of people confuse surrender with giving up, and it's not giving up. It's letting go of having to control. Yeah. That's all it is. And you beautifully spoke around this idea that it's trusting more. It's having that faith and that belief. And that's what's so hard because we're not trained how to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about relationship with money and how that can transform how money shows up for us in our lives. I'll let you dive into that. I know that's another big question.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't necessarily think of themselves as having a relationship with money. They don't look at money that way. Yeah. If you can get yourself to start to understand that you are having a relationship with money, that's a really big step, because when I talk about the relationship, it's how you interact and behave with money. If we're interacting and behaving with something that's important to us, that's a relationship. And what a lot of people don't realize is that we have a certain pattern of behavior with money. I mean, there's like people might think, well, I go into debt a lot, so that's one of my patterns. But there's something a lot bigger around the patterns of money, and we call these archetypes, and I'm sure you've heard of the term of archetype. I'm sure many of the women on this call have. But money, there are certain archetypes or patterns of behavior that we all, across the world, we will have certain money archetypes that are very active for us. And when you understand what that looks like, what comes with that archetype is a pattern of beliefs, a pattern of actions that you typically take, a pattern of thinking about money. There are gifts and there are things that are typically challenging. Yeah. And so when you start to see that relationship you have with money, and the archetype is a beautiful way to help people understand that, you have in the palm of your hand, literally, the ability to completely transform what's showing up for you financially by just stepping into a new paradigm, by really empowering the strengths that go along with your archetype, and overcoming the challenges easily and consciously.
Yeah. Can we dive into, I mean, I've got all my stories popping up in my head of how, my relationships with money, but can we dive into just, I don't know, how many archetypes are there?
There are 8 primary money archetypes.
So just to give an idea, perhaps can we look at a couple of them just so that we've got some
Sure.
context? Yeah.
Yes, and I'll tell you, my number 1 archetype is the celebrity.
Yeah.
So, which really floored me. And it didn't at the same time. And so with the celebrity archetype, if that's you, and you won't necessarily, like, some people might be thinking, oh yeah, that's totally me, but like I said, I was very surprised. The celebrity archetype is somebody they love to support people. They tend to be magnetic. They tend to be, at least to express confidence. They may not fully feel it. That was sort of my deal, is I would express confidence, but a lot of times I really didn't feel confident deep down inside. Yeah. So they're typically, fairly magnetic. People like to be around them. They like to help people. They feel good around people. They like to have beautiful things in their lives. I certainly had that issue, which caused for me a lot of debt and buying things for the wrong reasons because it made me feel good, right? So, if you're someone that likes to buy a lot of luxury items, and maybe you do or don't have the means to do that, I mean, that you can see where that could be a problem for you, a problem pattern, but it's part of being the archetype. You're drawn to these beautiful things.
Yeah.
One of the challenges with the celebrity, for example, is they oftentimes want to have these beautiful things around them because they think that people embrace them more. People love them more. So it's almost like a way to buy other people liking you rather than working on liking yourself and loving yourself.
Yeah.
So there's some beautiful lessons, and that's just an example of one of the archetypes and some of the lessons that we can learn from them.
Yeah, it becomes a worthiness conversation as well, doesn't it? I think.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. The celebrity is, one of my challenges I saw was that all through my life, and the pattern has played out all my life, is that I didn't feel worthy.
Yeah.
For most of my childhood and adult life, I didn't feel worthy of the things that I wanted, and I didn't feel even worthy of the things that I had. Yeah. And I settled a lot. And so the celebrity archetype for me really taught me that, Jill, you need to put your focus on loving you, no matter what anybody else thinks.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness. So, I think maybe if it helps, I know that, as I came through a couple of the things that were big for me, and awareness is just so key in all of these things. But I was terrible at maths at school. I just didn't get numbers. So even looking at numbers for me was paralyzing. I just instantly felt dumb and like it just wasn't something that I could do. So doing a lot of work, particularly in the visioning work that I do, was having those numbers up and written and actually getting comfortable with them. And it sounds so infantile and basic, but I know that I'm not alone in going through school and finding maths really challenging, and that relationship with numbers is a big tie-in. Is that something that you see?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of women have the very same challenge with you as you had, is around math, and we can put our self-identity around that too, and so then that can cause just issues with self-worth. But even when it comes to money, if you don't want to look at the numbers, I mean, that is a huge block that I see in a lot of clients, is they don't want to know about the number side. Yeah. They want things, but they're not willing to look, and they want someone else to handle it. And that's just a way to, it's not successful, because at a certain point you have to know your numbers, and if you want to create wealth. Yeah. And I've got some clients right now that are learning this lesson a little bit painfully. is to read contracts and look at the details of contracts. And if it has information about money, we don't want to see it, and that it can be your downfall, and you can get caught out. So,
And I think, as much as, we've come so far in the world with women in the workforce and women, like having their own money and so on, there is still a huge hangover of, don't you worry your pretty little head about it. Like it's a masculine thing, managing money, having, being the money earner. And, I certainly grew up in that. So that was very well entrenched in my belief system, and my relationship with money was that that's something that men handle. So, I think if you look at the women that you're working with, that you talked about, that are struggling with this right now, what are some of the first steps perhaps for the women that are listening that are like, yeah, that's what I've done?
Well, you just said the first step is acknowledging it. It's real, because a lot of people don't realize that they're doing it, first of all. So, if you don't want to, if you have the feeling that let me put it to you this way. If I were to ask someone, a woman sitting in front of me, how much money do you want to have? And she said, I want $1 million, or I want $10 million, or, just had threw out a number like that. Then I would say, why? Why do you want that? And if the answer is because I don't want to have to worry about money ever, that is a sign that this is an area that you want to look at, because it's an avoidance strategy. It's not wanting to be intimate with the money. So ask yourself that question. Why do you think of the number of amount of money you want, and why do you want that? Are you trying to avoid having to look at it? The next part is then you look, and this is what's happening with my clients, is depending on what's going on in their lives, and there are different things for different people that are happening. It's, where are you avoiding looking at this problem? Like, what are the things that you're avoiding looking at? And there was a great example I had in someone the other week where they were working on a contract, and she didn't read it. And there was a clause in there that is important to understand based on what was about to happen. And so that was a lesson. And so, then you kind of look at, where in my life right now am I not looking at the numbers when I could be?
Yeah. So you talked earlier about the role that intuition plays in creating money freedom. And I think, for the purposes of where we are across the globe right now, it is a scary time for lots and lots of people who are suddenly may well not be able to work at the moment. They may have even lost their job completely. We're at this, in this period of transition where things are really changing radically. There's lots of possibility and opportunity within that. But I think intuition, if we can dive into that a little bit, how do we trust intuition? And I'm trying to think how I want to word it, but like, fear can be a big overrider of intuition. We go into that head space rather than the heart space. So I would love to dive into the relationship between intuition and creating money freedom.
Yes.
To you.
Yes. And I would love to talk about this, because especially where we're at today, I think there's a big call on all of us to move more within, right? Go within and connect with. We have so much wisdom, that we are not tapping into. And no wonder so many people are, struggling financially. We don't, nobody tells us this. Nobody trains us on how to do this. So the thing about, well, first of all, you said, how do we trust it? And the only way to gain trust in something like intuition or the universe is you got to test it out. You've got to play with it. You've got to almost jump off that cliff a little bit and see what happens in order to build your trust. You will be caught. You will be, gently, you'll connect with it, but you've got to take a little bit of risk if you ever want to build up that trust. So the thing about how the intuition is really, the way I look at it, as it's a GPS system to get to your end result. If you first connect with your desire, what is it that I want? And there's questions we can ask to make sure that it's something that is a heart and soul desire and not just kind of a dysfunctional keeping up with the Joneses type of desire. Once you know it's a heart and soul desire, the very next step is to allow your intuition to guide you. It's like you have your GPS and you plug in your desire, and then you need to take the first step. Well, where that step comes from is your higher self, the universe, your intuition. You know, your intuition is kind of a bridge to the universe, is how I look at it. And so what I do and what I guide my clients to do there to start practicing this is every day is to sit down, and this can look many different ways. But the way I do it is through journaling. And I'll ask, as the woman who, let's say I'm trying to manifest my dream home. I would say, as the woman who is sitting in her dream home right now, overlooking the ocean, I am guided today to, and I just start to write whatever comes to my head. I don't think about it. I don't judge it. I don't question it. And I write. And those are my marching orders. And then I follow them. And it's when my clients start to do this, it's like, wow, because think about it. If you're trying to create something you've never had in your life before, how is your brain going to help you figure that out? You know, either you need to hire someone who's done it, who can show you the steps, but even that's not that great, because what worked for them may not work for you. You're getting personalized guidance when you connect with your intuition. So,
I think one of the biggest ahas for me when I was, first learning this process, that when you're visioning, when you're setting that, that dream home, it's letting go of the how is actually the first step, because that, we go back to the control. So if we can let go of the how and just create the dream vision or the dream goal, however, people want to set it out, and let go of the how comes later. It's actually not the first step.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the how is not even your business. That it's not your job to figure out how. That's what's so beautiful about connecting with the intuition, because it will give you the steps, but it's not going to lay out the whole plan either. It'll give you step by step. And if you don't actually take a step, and this is where a lot of people make a mistake as well, is they'll sit down and they'll get some guidance and they'll just feel, I'm nudged to do this. But then fear, like you talked about, the fear will come in, and so they won't. They'll second guess. Right when you second guess, that's where you sabotage yourself. Because that came to you for a reason. And the trusting part and the sort of risky part is doing what your intuition just told you to do and seeing what happens. And then you'll get the next step, but you won't get it if you haven't taken the first step.
No. And it comes, from my experience, it came with baby steps. I had to, I had to do the first baby steps, maybe not, because they, it then has to be a level of really stretching yourself. It was like the first time I invested in my coach, or the first really impactful vision board that I did for my business. I put massively stretchy goals on there that I never, I just couldn't imagine how it would ever become real, but I trusted the process and did it, and it all happened. And so then the next one got a little bit stretchier, and the next one got a bit stretchier. So, I think that you can't stay within your comfort zone, I think is what I'm trying to get across. Do you agree with that? Has that been your experience?
100%. I mean, nothing you want is in your comfort zone. I'll tell you that right now. It all exists outside. So if you're not willing to do some things that you've never done before, you can't get what you don't have if you're not willing to be different. And that takes a lot of courage.
It does. What's one of the stretchiest ones you've done? Just to give people an idea, a bold decision.
Oh, God. Well, probably the boldest decision I ever made was literally walking away from a well-paying corporate job to start my first business.
Yes.
Not having a clue how to, I didn't know how to run a business. I
Yeah.
didn't know the first thing.
Yeah.
That was all intuitively guided.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it now for 12 years, going on 13 years.
It was a good
Yeah.
decision.
Oh, it was the best. It was the best. I mean, I have goosebumps now. It just was the best decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the, you talk about, one of the worst questions you can ask, you create this beautiful vision or you write your goals. And then you say that one of the worst questions you can ask is when it's going to show up. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, isn't that what we always think when we've been working really hard at something and it just seems like it's not coming on our timeline?
Yeah.
It's like, well, this isn't working. When is it going to finally be here? When do I finally get to stop working this hard or, whatever, doing all this stuff? When is it going to just be here now? That is a question that will lead you to know where you want to be. Because when you ask that question, and you think about this for a minute, when you have something, you don't say when's it going to show up, because you have it. So you don't need to ask that question. It becomes irrelevant. When you don't have what you want, and so you're asking when is it going to show up, that is coming from a place of not having, which is a place of lack. And we are energetic beings. And with the law of attraction, you attract what you are. You attract the vibe that you put out. If you are asking questions that are coming from a vibration of lack, which that question is, that you cannot possibly bring in the thing that you're asking about. They exist on different vibrational levels. It'll never be with you when you come from that space. You need to come from the space of, I already have it. And then it can just whoosh, comes right in. But that's really hard for people to do when they don't have it. So one of the questions that I ask my clients to ask instead when they, and if you're one of these people who, and I was too, trust me, so many times. If you tend to say, when's it going to be here? Here's a different question to ask that comes from a different energy that will allow it to show up for you. And that question is, what can I do to be relaxed and comfortable and calm while I'm waiting for the universe to bring this to me? Because that's really what it's all about. It's finding ways to chill and to just let it happen and to not control every minute detail of it.
I like to talk about, you mentioned before, money's energy, like we're energy. Everything that is living on this planet is energy. And, money is, that beautiful ebb and flow of energy. And we need to be able to receive, we need to be able to give. And it's just that's the way that I picture it. Like, what can I do to be of service? What can I do to contribute? And then this exchange happens. But if you sit in that contracted, kind of paralyzed waiting phase, the energy's blocked. That's, that works for me visually.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Exactly. It's very victim-y to ask that question and to come from that place. And I love that you said, you talked about when you just come from service. Because that's when you make it, when we're asking, where is it? We're making everything about us. And that's not what the world is. You have to exhale in order to inhale. If you never exhale, you can never inhale back. It's this beautiful flow. So the being of service is the exhaling. And then, the next movement is you're taking it in.
So, I hope that the women that are listening to this are really taking this in. I know that I struggled with this so much, and my analyzing brain, my brain that was, very hardwired to think that, money comes from hard work and academic understanding, and that's hardwired into my brain. So I've got to look at that and gently shut it down. without making myself wrong, but just in that space of, this is possible. I know it works because I've done it. So my hope is in saying that the women who are listening are not just going, it's a woo-woo, because I know it works and it is so powerful. So how do we, if we pop a number on our vision board or in our journal or however we do it, of the money that we want to bring in over the next 12 months, how do we stay unattached, focused but unattached?
Yeah. Yeah. You never want to unattach from your desire.
Yeah.
And, this is just a personal thing. And, some people may not resonate with this, but I'm not a super big fan of just throwing a number on a vision board. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yep.
But for me, it's hard for me to get really jazzed about a number. But when I look at, well, what is that for? What will that amount of money bring to me that I really want? Because it's never really about the money. I mean, some people might be thinking, oh yes, it is, Jill, but it really isn't. It's what you think that money will give to you. When I talked earlier about when some people just say, oh, I just want $1 million so I don't have to worry. What you're looking for is to not worry about money. That's a different thing to have on your vision board than just the $1 million.
Yeah.
So it's, you never want to detach from the true desire underneath the desire, whatever that is. That you're going to hold, just stay committed to. But what you do need to play with and detach from, and this is where it gets hard. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. Once you get it, you get it. You've got it. But it takes some practice. Is you're detaching from how it is going to look as you go through the process of receiving it.
Yeah.
If you are attached to how it's going to look, who's going to bring it to you, what channel it's going to be, how it has to come. If you're attached to that, you shut the window, you shut the doors to all the possible ways that it could come. So that's what I would say about, you stay committed to the ultimate desire. Be loose and open as to how it's going to come in.
Yeah. Know your why.
Know your why. Yes.
Know your why.
Be clear.
I had two things, as I've spent many, many years as a single mum with 4 little kids. And my first whys that I remember were, one, that Christmas wasn't a total nightmare of scarcity, and how do I spoil my beautiful kids without feeling like it's just every cent that I had, and so stressful. And taking my family on a holiday, there's 6 of us and we're moving into lots of adult tickets now for anything. So being able to take, really beautiful family holidays, they were 2 of my biggest whys. And I think, that once you have your heart wrapped around how important that is to you, then nothing will get in the way.
Yes, and that's the key. What you just said there is having your heart wrapped into it. That's that feeling tone. That's the essence that we want to stay committed to. And when you focus on the essence but not what it should look like, that's where the miracles show up very easily, actually.
Beautiful. I know you've got a really gorgeous gift for our audience. Jill, would you take a minute to tell them what that is?
Yes, I have an audio. It's a 30-minute audio, so it's pretty easy to listen to. It doesn't take a lot of time, where I cover 7 inner shifts that, as you go through them, you literally open the floodgates to more money in your life. It's shifts that some of the most successful people, not just financially, but who are making an impact and have created freedom in their life. It's what they use. It's the mindset that they hold that allows them to do that. So I walk through those 7 shifts. It's many of the things that I myself had to learn, and that I love sharing. And I've put with that a companion guidebook that allows you to do, I ask certain journaling prompts that allow you to get deeper for yourself and really personalize the process that I'm taking you through in that audio. So it's, and I've had fantastic feedback about this. So I'm really excited to share it with our listeners.
Yeah, I'm excited to check it out. I'm curious, are these things that you put into practice yourself, like every year you kind of do a process again, or is it something that you do once, or how do you manage that? How do you do that in your life?
Do that in terms of follow
These
the
steps.
shifts.
Is it something that you're doing once and then it's a shift in the way that you see and do things forever, or is it a process that you go through on an ongoing basis?
That's a really great question. It depends.
Yeah,
So for some of the things, for me, it was a one and done because it
yeah,
was relatively easy and it was just more of a, oh, I didn't realize that. And it was just
yeah,
a conscious shift I was able to make because I didn't have any negative beliefs around that. For others, they would be things that are completely contrary to how I was conditioned to believe.
yes,
So it was more of a process. It was practicing the thought
yeah,
and then and actually frankly being coached through some
yeah,
of the things that I was really struggling with shifting,
yeah,
because that helped me to trust and to try things,
mm,
was if I had someone there who had my back.
yeah,
So it's a little bit of both, practicing certain ones that were tougher and some were just very easy to move into.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's I always talk about it being such an important part of the process to be in connection with somebody that is supporting your shifts. If
Yes.
we're only if we're only having the same conversations with the same people, but we want to do something radically different, it's a much harder road. So
Yeah.
for the people I know that they're going to want to dive in and listen to more of what you've got to say, where are the best places to find you?
Yeah, well, that audio can be
Yep.
found on. Well, you probably have a link there, but
Yeah,
it's
they'll have a
iShine
link
Kids.
right below this
Okay,
interview. Yep, absolutely.
okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, and if they want to connect with me in another way and actually have a conversation, I've got a way to do that at ishinekids.com/money clarity. I
Beautiful.
do a free money freedom clarity call with people to help them see where they're sort of being blocked
Yeah.
from getting what they want and what they need to shift.
I hope everyone listening takes you up on that, because being able to articulate what is going on in your head and in your life and having somebody else that's neutral having that conversation with you is such a powerful process. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Jill, for being part of this series and for sharing your wisdom with us. I'm just so honored to have you.
Oh, well, thank you so much for inviting me, Edwina. Has just been great. And I love that you're doing this. And I think it's
Yeah.
so amazing and important and such a gift to the women out there today.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.